for the fees that will be charged to conduct these rental safety inspections. So that way the money will come in, it'll go into this revolving fund and then pay for the cost of the inspection. And that's what this fund will do. And Pam Fahey, our wonderful director of public health, is with us tonight to explain more about the new program and the fund.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me, everybody. I think I met a lot of you last year. We had a warrant article about the Cook Estate. So as Chris mentioned, the Board of Health just passed a new regulation that's going to require every rental unit in town to be inspected each time there's a turnover in tenant, and then at least once a year. And so it's a lot of units. There's 255 up at the preserve, and then there's other fairly sizable ones, and then there's a lot of little ones that we're going to have to find. But in order to do all this and take it all on, we're going to actually have it implemented beginning January 1st. We have some stuff we have to get done logistically. And a couple of the big things are we have to buy a new permitting module. So in the Board of Health and in building, we already have a system called Permit Eyes, and everybody that needs to apply for a permit can do it online through Permit Eyes. In the health department, we already have modules for food and septic and pools and body works and all kinds of things, but we don't have housing. So we have to spend money to buy another new module for housing. People will be able to apply online. They'll pay a fee of $100 to have an inspection. And assuming they pass the inspection, excuse me, the program will produce a certificate of habitability. And that's like a certificate of occupancy that the building inspector already produces for when people are going to move into a new home. In addition to that module, we also need additional software. Like it's actually like a field program. So we're going to have iPads, and we'll have an inspection form. It's like an official state form, and that follows the state housing code. And, you know, we'll probably have to buy a couple of iPads. And so that's also an additional cost. Luckily, in terms of inspectors, because we're going to need a few of us, I can do it already. Our public health nurse can do it already. She ran a whole program in the town of Hull previously, but we are going to have another new inspector. Now that we can actually get covered by a grant that we currently have for our health department. So it's really, we're looking at software, and we're looking at probably some hardware to get going. But as Chris said, what we really like to do is use the fee money that we get from all these inspections and kind of just, you know, pay for the software, pay for the hardware, and just kind of keep it going. There may be some additional costs. We're not even quite sure at this point, but that's our plan, to set up a revolving account. I don't know if you have any questions. Mike?
Hi.
I'm sorry, chairperson should say that. It's not me, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you. So I guess just a couple of questions on the numbers, because forgive me if they were sent somewhere, but I guess you mentioned that there was a need for a new FTE that was going to be covered by a grant. Grants are typically one time in nature, and then when you hire somebody, that then goes on to perpetuity. So the revenue expense match doesn't always work out there. So that's my first question, is beyond the grant, how does that person get funded? The next thing is just, you know, in terms of the $100 inspection fee, like relative to the amount of costs that are going to be needed for, you know, software, iPads, et cetera, how does that match up? And then is some of this actually a capital question versus an operating budget question?
Okay, let me start off with the grant itself. So I totally understand. Usually grants are like, you know, one time and then they're gone. This is actually a really great grant that's put out by the Department of Public Health. It kind of came about because during the pandemic, the state realized that town health departments were very much underfunded. So we are in a partnership with the towns of Hingham and Scituate. We're getting $433,000 a year. And it's really for the next, we have three-year contracts coming up with them. So 9 years in total, we should get that $433,000. And it's primarily to boost staff more than anything. I mean, we are using it for some programs, so it's more to boost staff than anything. And so with that, so far, we've bought, well, not bought, but we have hired Stephanie Saunders as a full-time social worker. Samantha Joyce is a full-time outreach worker. We have a part-time public health nurse. We have contractors that help us. And so I think the grant is different than your normal little 1-year grant. I think we're good there. But in the long run, I think if this does go away, say in 9 years, I think if we have this revolving fund, I think hopefully it could pay for that inspector, at least a part-time inspector. Actually, I don't think it's gonna have to be a full-time person. I think it's gonna be like a half-time person. The other part of your question, so the software, the first year we buy it, the cost is gonna be $8,050. And then annually, it's gonna be like just under $3,000. So it's not too much. We should actually have a lot more money with the fees that we can kind of build up over time. And if we need to, we can eventually maybe hire somebody to be a full-time, not a full-time, but a Cohasset employee rather than a grant employee. I have to admit, I haven't done the numbers yet. We're still not even sure of how many rental units there are. We know like some of the big ones. We know that Preserves get 255. I think there's 25-ish and 390 CJC, 132 CJC's got another dozen. I think all told, there may be in the neighborhood of like 500 units out there. Not sure yet, but that's why we need time between now and January and kind of get it all pulled together. We have a lot of logistical work to do to get it ready.
Yeah, I guess I would just say, like, if this is something that we have to vote on and we have to ask the taxpayers to vote on, a spreadsheet of some type to kind of walk us through the, what the revenue sources are with the $100 fees versus what the costs are is going to be, for me, critical to be able to make an informed decision on this. It sounds great. Everything conceptually sounds great, but sometimes the devils are in the detail.
Got it. Yeah, definitely do that.
Thank you.
Okay, Fran?
Yeah, $100 to inspect. Now, what does that inspection entail?
So we go by the state sanitary code. And so it's all health related type things. It's not exactly building, but there's a little bit of a crossover. So for the state sanitary code, it involves heat and hot water and appliances working, making sure there's no pests, there's no mold, no water leaking anywhere, windows are tight. I mean, there's a list of like probably 60 different things that we look at and go through the list.
I'm just wondering if $100 is a little bit high when the rents are so high to begin with, and you know that $100 is going to be passed right on to the tenant. I'm just wondering if we've actually looked at it and find how much time does it take, and is that a realistic figure, or is that just a number we picked out of the air?
It's kind of goes along with our food inspections. Like we charge every food establishment a $200 fee a year, but we do 2 inspections a year for each food establishment. So it kind of goes along with that. We also looked at what other towns charge, and it's in line with what other towns were like $75 to $100. So we really didn't quite pick it out of the air, but I understand what you're saying about being passed on to tenants. It's a good point.
Okay, well, I think is what Mike said, we need to see all of the details, because as we do know, the devil is certainly in them, so. Yeah.
Okay.
I had my hand up and I got turned off. So I have a quick question probably, or maybe not. How does this new initiative get handled with private homes that have accessory dwellings that are rentals? And homes that are rented? Does it apply to that also? Because we do have a lot of people who come and go.
So one of the exemptions is if you have a short-term rental, like say you're doing like an Airbnb, that's exempt. You don't have to do that. And if it's your family member, like it's literally your mother-in-law or your child or something, that's exempt as well. So it's going to be, I forget what the time period is. I think anything greater than 30 days of a rental, it falls into this category. And again, it's going to be you're charging the person money. It's not a family member that's living there for free.
Okay, I'm just curious how you track that for somebody who rents a house for a year, for example.
So we have a couple of ways we can start doing searches because we've started to do some searches. We can get some information from the assessor's office. They have information because they go into all the different homes. We can get information from some of the realtors and they can help us out. And then some of it's just going to be the honor system. I'm sure there's going to be some that are going to slip through the cracks.
I mean,
And
we
then
have
also-
we have
Oh.
executives who come and live here from foreign countries and go to foreign countries and rent their homes to others. So
Mhm.
I think that we need to be cognizant of that happening also.
Okay. And you'd be surprised working in the town hall, how many people like to tell on their neighbors. So we'll probably hear from that venue as well.
Okay. And Diane has her hand up now.
I'm going to try this. Sorry, I'm about to take a left-hand turn. Just one thing you'll probably also hear when people come to get their beach stickers. Oh, I'm a renter. So that's another way to track it. But my question is more in line with sort of Mike's question, just in terms of being able to plot this out over a number of years and taking into account, and this is something I think eventually we would want to update on, notwithstanding this decision or this issue, which is what's going to happen with the MBTA build out for rental units, because 8 years now we're talking, 600 units plus what we already have. If there's any new coming on, I think we need to build out some kind of long-term, just a budget snapshot, if you will, of what it might look like as we add more housing to the unit, because it might end up being that we're going to need more full-time equivalents, et cetera, and just to make sure that the program is kind of set up to be able to address whatever might come. Thank you.
Any more questions? Chris?
And I just want to capstone this. I want to say that, so with the vote, so the Board of Health has adopted the regulations, right? So they're in place. Or they're going into place, they're going into effect. And as Pam said, we're in a regional multi-year grant agreement. At the same time, there's going to be some, ramping up on this. That said, we do expect in the long run, this will be handled much like we already do food inspections, as Pam was saying, right? We have a part-time inspector that we pay with fees, so they're not a full-time employee, right? They're a contract. And that's what we expect this will be. It's also possible, because the state has been trying to, that's the reason for this grant, is for all of us to up our games at the local level, that everyone is seeing. You've seen the number of units that have popped up in Hingham, right? And Situate is going that way too. Weymouth and Hull have been doing this for years. This is not an unusual program, but they had a lot more rentals than we did. There's going to be more of these, and as Diane pointed out with MBTA, I don't know if anything's going to get built there at any point. There's been no expectations that that's happening, and there's nothing in the pipeline, to be clear. That said, just the accessory dwelling unit piece that's already happened might start creating some more rentals too. So this is a proactive effort to get ahead of that, to make sure we know where the rentals are and we're safe, that we're staying in safety. At the same time, we're very cognizant of the fact that the program has to pay for itself, right? We want to make sure that the costs are being paid for. And I think that we're set for the short term, and I think we'll be okay, particularly with this grant. At the same time, we are cognizant we have to make sure that this is a fully funded program as we go forward, because it may actually get bigger. It's very possible.
Mike, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, so Chris, just so I can, for clarity, so the Board of Health has adopted this. So I guess what's the ask of us? And again, it just lots of things being thrown around, but no numbers for us to look at.
Right, so
And, you know, and there's always creep in this stuff. I mean, having done this for 20 years, there's always creep. And so, you know, how do we try to ensure that there isn't creep for the taxpayers? Like that's what we're trying to achieve here. And it all sounds great, you know, conceptually, but we have no numbers.
So what's happening here? So what's being asked is just to create a revolving fund, which is an off-budget revolving fund. So the rental income comes in, the fees come in and pay for the program. It's what we do for inspections already. It's what we do for recreation. It's what we do for current affairs programs. It's modeled on that. Now your point is well taken. As we develop this, we'll have to figure out where this, what the impact is going to be long term. The fee was set to generate, we think, enough income annually to pay for our inspection and any accessory costs. With that understanding that up front, we're going to have to invest in that software. That's the next step. So this goes to effect January-ish. Pam, is that the goal?
January 1st, yep. And we do have our quotes from the software company because we've already been using them for all these other modules. So, I mean, I can pull together a spreadsheet for you. I'll do that.
Yeah,
Chris,
I would just say we're 3 months away from January 1st.
Right.
And you're saying that, the revolving fund, again, this revolving fund's gonna cover the costs of everything. And, I hope next June, we're not talking about a transfer from free cash, because it's not, right? I mean, I get it, the Board of Health's approved this, so I guess it's a fait accompli. However, are the revenues actually going to match the expenses? Because we're not seeing that right now.
No, I hear you completely, and that kind of level of detail has to be created. At the same time,
Well, shouldn't it be created before the Board of Health votes on it?
well, so let me put back in context what Pam's already said. We already have grant funding for the position. So we have grant funding for the position that's in place for at least 3 years and most likely 9, since that's what the state's announced. So we have and by the way, 100% covering, so we don't technically even need the rental income. We don't have to have the money right now for it. We're going to have to make an upfront investment in the software, right? So that's going to be a little less than right around $10,000. But outside of that, it's going to be using the the staff we already have to cut, Pam and the building inspector, and then of course retaining this other inspector, which will be fully grant funded. So this went into effect, is going into effect with an understanding that it's funded for now, because the single biggest expense is the actual body, right? Who'll have to do the inspection. We have a health director, we have a building inspector, we have a fire inspector. And we also, by the way, our public health nurse ran an identical program in the town of Home. So we have an idea of what this should look like and what it would take in terms of time. You are absolutely correct. There's an unknown to this too, right? The town's never done this ever. From a budget perspective, though, I think we feel confident we're okay. This is a belts and suspenders thing right now. I don't want to make it sound like there's not going to be impacts. We want to create the rolling fund now so that when income starts coming in, it stays for the program, right? I don't want it to get washed into the budget and we start using it to pay for other things, right? So the goal of the inspection cost should be to pay for the inspections, because it's a very niche thing. At the same time, Pam, I'm right along with Pam. I'm sure I'll be meeting with her in the not too distant future to come up with something a little fancier to share so that everyone can see it. Because we do have to make sure it is funded. At this point, though, to be clear, we think the grant is going to cover the vast majority of these costs, with an understanding that we'll up front have to spend some money on it out of either free cash or capital to buy the software. I hope that at least gives you a little sense that we've actually been looking at this.
I mean, it's been thought about, but there's a lot of ifs and buts in what you're saying. And just, it'd be nice if a simple spreadsheet was put together. Again, no one can predict the future, but a simple spreadsheet, like laying this stuff out, And again, if the Board of Health voted on it, did they have some numbers that they voted on? Like if they had them, it would be great for us to see them too if we're being asked to vote on them. So just that'll be my ask.
No, it's a fair point. It's a good question.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so I agree with Mike. I think that there's not enough information for us to make a recommendation tonight. I mean, obviously, this is kind of preliminary and it's the first thing that we're talking about. How did the spending limit get determined?
I actually took it over with Tracy. It probably could be lower. Because I think we're talking about 350 rental units at an estimate at the moment, and that'll be about $35,000 a year. But so I kind of doubled it, just in that was just let's put a number that's comfortable enough that we won't have to go and amend it during the course of a year. I don't think there's more secret rental units out there, but we don't know. That's one of the challenges, right? We're gonna have to build that database. As Pam said, we've already started to build that database. So, and that number can always be adjusted during the year. The select board can always adjust it during the year. It's just we have to put something as a starting point. And I wanted to set it a little higher rather than a little lower, just to be safe. Is that
Okay. So I think that we understand the program, we understand the reason for it, and I fully understand the need for it, but we need more financial information and more of a plan before we can make any kind of a recommendation. Because there will be lots of people who are asking questions.
well, this is the big first stop, right? You've just come off a little break, and you're like,
Little break, it was a great break.
Exactly. This is Pam's like,
It's taken me a while to get back in gear, I have to say.
Pam's like, you should have put me first, Chris. You should have put me later. So
Okay,
All right.
any other questions before we move on? Thank you very much, Pam. We appreciate it.
I'll come back with a spreadsheet. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
we have Tom Hick in the audience, so I'm happy to call him up.
Okay. That sounds good. I did not print his presentation because I didn't want to empty the cartridge at work.
Oh, there he is.
I'm gonna make him I'm gonna allow him to share his screen.
Hi, everybody.
Hi there,
Good.
how are you?
Good, thank you.
Good, we're looking forward to your presentation.
Oh, thanks very much. I appreciate your flexibility as I was at another AdCom meeting in Hanover just a little earlier, but I live in Hanson, so I was able to 10 minutes home, and here I am, Brady Bunch Square and all.
Great.
So tonight I have a presentation for you, and I want to be respectful of your time. I probably am oversharing information in the materials. I'm sorry, were you able to get an advanced copy of it, or would this be brand new, what I'm putting on the screen?
We did, we got it yesterday.
Wonderful. The first several slides of the presentation just to bring you up to speed on our potential building project. It's an interesting topic. It's an important topic, but I know that I'm here to talk to you tonight about the potential change to our regional agreement. So I'll put this on the screen, but in the interest of time, unless you'd care for me to go on a slower pace, I'd rather start with what you've asked me to comment on, and then I could certainly circle back if necessary.
Okay,
but
great.
Also happy to talk in the future about it. But these opening slides just orient folks to Cohasset being one of the original 6 towns that joined the district. We're now a school that's busting at the seams with enrollment, a picture of our current school, steady enrollment trends, a recent increase in Cohasset's enrollment starting in 2019. So there's a trend we're seeing in most of our communities that there's increased interest in our type of education. Some very, very attractive looking pictures of a potential new building if the voters say yes. Adding in some new programs like plumbing and veterinary science, and some additional facts projecting what something like this might cost. It's a multi-floor school. I'm going slowly enough so no one gets nauseous as I scroll too fast here. And now to the part of the presentation that I want to be able to focus on here. We have had a regional agreement in place since 1960. And we have amended this agreement twice since 2017. In 2017, it was time for an overhaul. It had been 40 years since we had looked at the guts of the agreement, and that was a very helpful process. And in 2023, we actually amended the agreement again because we just started with the town of Marshfield as our 9th community. And the reason I'm here tonight is to tell you that we have another amendment that we want to bring forward to our communities this fall, and that is to change how we are apportioning debt. We have language right now that says two things. First, it says that debt is fixed at the time of its authorization, and it does not fluctuate regardless of changes in a town's enrollment. And our agreement also says that for several years, this new member community of ours, Marshfield, is going to pay an annual share of any debt until such time as they have enough enrollment history. And just to dwell on that for a second, if you're going to use a look back to calculate enrollment and a town doesn't have enrollment history, that creates that is not an apples to apples situation. And so what we did in 2023 is we created a system where Marshfield was going to basically be on a pay-as-you-go for several years, and then we were going to fix a debt share. That made sense at the time. We're coming to you now with an amendment that says, it says it in the middle of the slide here, the proposed amendment is to move all towns' debt shares to a 4-year average, a rolling 4-year average of student enrollment. It's more of a pay-as-you-go approach. The percentages you see on the left of this slide reflect what each town's share is as of now, doing a 3-year look back. So if we're going to borrow money for this building project in fiscal 26, and we do a 3-year look back, Cohasset's share of this would be 1.49%. That is the first step in a calculation, and I'll dwell on this a little later in the presentation. You'll notice it says Marshfield TBD, and that is because we don't have enough enrollment data, but we have a mechanism to calculate it. I can tell you today, because it's October, and you know that you may recall from any conversations you've had on Chapter 70 funding formulas for schools, that it's in October where school districts capture enrollment numbers. So I know today that Marshfield has about 37 kids in the building, 30 of whom are from their inaugural freshman class. So Marshfield today has a 5.5% approximately share of our student body enrollment. Under our current regional agreement, and also this wouldn't change in the new agreement, that 5.5% is going to be collected from our new member town and given, not given, but used as an offset to our existing town. So I want you to kind of look at it as we're bringing on a new roommate. They've got to pay the bills in a slightly different way, but whatever their debt share is, whatever that money is, that's going to be used to lower and offset any future costs. So that's kind of the overview page. This next slide here is a visual of what I was just blabbing on about. In our current regional agreement, whenever a project that's going to be involving debt gets approved, we do a 3-year look back. We look back at the enrollment numbers from the 3 previous fiscal years. What we're looking to do differently, this is just another visual of what I attempted to say, this is a 4-year rolling average. So the first line here says, okay, what fiscal year are you building the budget for? We're building the budget for fiscal, let's say 33. Okay, well, when does that budget get certified and brought to the townsfolk in our towns? It gets certified in the fiscal year prior. So we're reviewing it, we're certifying it 45 days before our earliest town meeting. Okay, so somewhere in fiscal 32, we're getting that budget certified. And in order to do this new calculation, instead of it being a fixed 3-year look back, it would be a 4-year look back, and those years would change over time. So that's the reason you see me with a fiscal 33 example, and then just to punctuate the point, a fiscal 42 example, looking back to these years. So with each passing year, a town's debt share calculation would adjust based on, I would say, incremental changes in enrollment. We already use this model for our capital expenses, and we've been doing that since 1960. In other words, when we assess capital, that's capital equipment that we don't borrow for, our regional agreement since 1960 has said you use a 3-year rolling average. So when we got feedback from some of our towns that we should look at changing the fixed debt share, we looked at that 3-year average and we said, the concept sounds good. Let's make it 4 years because we are on the cusp of a big potential building project. And these are bigger numbers than we would have seen for debt shares in the school's history. So that visual on the screen right now is in essence what we're trying to change. This last slide here is, this slide here is really just a summary of what's happening next for us. And I'll just talk about numbers 1 and 3 very briefly, if you don't mind, since it's on the slide. We're going to know if the state approves this building project on October 30th. And then I will have some revised, I'll be able to put out some tax impact numbers. The way that we will determine if our project is approved by our voters is it goes directly to a ballot on January 25th, 2025. This is called a special district election. The voters in our 9 towns will have an opportunity to vote in person or by absentee ballot, and the total number of yays, the total number of nays will determine if it is approved. How the project gets paid for is a matter for each town to decide, and I would welcome the opportunity at a future meeting once I know your focus is on special town meeting, but I would gladly make myself available to unpack that further with you all at your convenience, certainly. But number 2 is more germane to my presentation. And it's essentially that from this past Monday, when Hanson had its special town meeting, through the middle of December, all 9 of our towns will take up this regional agreement amendment article. And that's really, so that is my focus in a parallel track with talking to our communities about our building project. If you have never seen the inside of our school, we're on Route 123 in Hanover. We do have an open house coming up on Saturday, October 19th. That is not the only day our doors would be open to residents of our communities, along with maybe visiting our restaurant or our salon. I would be more than happy to welcome any of you for a tour of our building or a deeper conversation. And of course, I would come back to your full committee for any clarifying questions. But for tonight, that's the essence of my reason to take up your time tonight, is that regional agreement amendment article. So thank you very much for listening. And I'd be happy to answer questions if you have any.
Questions, anyone? Okay, Mark first, and then Fran. You're
Oh,
muted.
sorry, Mark.
Sorry, Tom, appreciate the work you folks are doing there.
Thank you.
I think it's a great program. How does this affect future, and is there a plan for potential future communities to join the school in the district and beyond Marshfield and the ones currently enrolled?
Yes, I'll answer it this way, and I'll be specific. The town of Pembroke has expressed interest. They have formed a regional planning committee, and I have had maybe quarterly meetings with town officials. They're monitoring our school building project. And I think that once they know whether this project is approved, they will likely take the next step. But in terms of the mechanics, the way that it would work would be the same way we would have handled Marshfield. We would start conversations between the respective regional planning committees or their designees. We would likely, our school district would likely formulate an amendment to our regional agreement, which would essentially be the terms and conditions for a new member town. When we just a quick half step back, when we brought in Marshfield, we did 2 things. The first thing we said is, you've got to contribute to our stabilization fund a reasonable share, because our communities have been putting money through appropriation. And so we don't want to create an us and a them. I would expect that to be part of any future. I think that's a sound move. I would expect that. I would recommend that as part of any future town's involvement. If another community like Pembroke were to join, let's say in fiscal 27 or 28, let's pretend our project is approved. We know what the cost is going to be approximately. We're going to want to calculate any debt that maybe our towns have already paid. And ultimately, I think the Marshfield model, although it is a bit tortured sometimes for me to explain, it really was the only fair way for everyone to not create again, to try to create a collaborative situation, which is nobody actually knows how many kids might enroll. And so if the district or the new town wanted to pick a random number, like you're going to have to pay 10 million bucks. If that's not based on anything, someone's going to look very bad if in fact that's how it was accepted. So the model we have for Marshfield is you pay as you go until you have enough enrollment history. And that's something I should take just a moment to articulate, that the presentation doesn't go into it deeply. Every year that Marshfield adds more kids, that increases the share, and therefore that increases the discount for our sitting towns. By fiscal 33, and that I can map this out a little more detail, but when we're preparing the fiscal 33 budget, that will be the budget year that Marshfield will have 4 years in a row of having 4 grades of kids in the building, which is an apples to apples comparison for our other communities. If you started doing a 4-year look back with a new community, you'd be averaging in zeros. They'd have no kids, and it would create an artificially low share. So yes, I think we have a good model. I've already, in my conversations with Pembroke, again, this would be subject to a town meeting vote and a lengthy process, including with the Department of Ed. Although the Department of Ed they've been very good. They still take my phone calls. I don't think they're going to need to talk to me as much if I bring in a new community and bring that to you in a year or two. We'll have a model in place. So yes, I think that we do have a template to revisit.
Great, thank you.
Fran?
Yeah, hi. Tom came before us a year or so ago, and he invited us to come over and visit the school. It's a very under-observed gem that we have in our community around here. It's just unbelievable. So I took him up. I called him up one morning and I said, Tom, I'd like to come over and take a look at the school. He said, when can you be there? I said, half an hour. So over I went. So there was no time for dog and pony show, you know. And Tom took me by the hand, and I was just absolutely thoroughly stunned and amazed by the condition of the building. Spotless clean. The shops had all modern equipment. The students all looked bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. They all had proper uniforms on and safety equipment. And I was just amazed with the scope of the education facilities that are over there. It's just not someone learning how to pound nails or to you know, change a tire on a car. They've got an incredible program. And I really urge any of you, you know, with us here tonight to go take a look. It's something to behold, and it's something we really need to get on board and help get this thing funded. You know, with 100 kids standing by that would like to get into the school, they're just full to the rafters. They don't have any more room. So anyway, thanks for coming again, Tom.
Sure thing, Fran. And that invitation is open and extended. And again, if you'd like to just swoop in incognito, come to our open house. The place will be hopping. But yeah, thank you very much for that.
I can absolutely agree with Fran's comments about the condition of the building. Several years ago, before COVID, quite a bit before COVID, I took an EKG class there. And I really enjoyed it very much. And I remember it kind of the school brought back memories of schools that I've attended in my lifetime, but it was immaculate. Yeah. Everything was taken care of. I wish I had some free time to hit the salon over there.
That's very high praise. Thank you, Jean. That's very high praise.
Maybe finish my EKG process, which just involves an exam. But anyway, so, and I have a grandnephew who taught there for a while also. So I'm familiar.
Oh, is that right? Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah. I'm familiar enough to add my praise to Fran's comments.
Thank you. We take a lot of pride in, and we would expect that our towns would expect us to want to extend the life of the building as best we can. And we operate knowing that the kids in front of us right now are just as important as the kids that might be in a new building if we're lucky to, if we're lucky to get it. But in the meantime, you got to do the best with the hand that you're dealt. And boy, oh boy, the vocational instructors, and their skill sets, they've helped to maintain the building. You're right. You're right. And that might be why the MSBA told us no for 6 years in a row. And we will take that, we'll take that up to a certain point. And, but you know, just the same, we do appreciate that feedback. We want to give a good impression and take care of the assets we have.
After 9 years serving on the school committee, I can tell you that that MSBA is a blessing and a curse.
I have moments where I say both words, not curse words. I say it's a curse. Yeah.
Okay.
One more quick
One more.
observation. What is your student maximum capacity now?
Fran, as of today, we've got 686 students. I would tell you that, and that's with a freshman class of 180. I couldn't take any more freshmen. I could probably sprinkle in a few more. So let's say we're at the ceiling. Our enrollment did go up from last year. This new building would be 900, so it would open up 40. It would open up 45 to 50 new seats. I am very careful, however, to say to our school, I don't think I have to say it, but I say it because I think it's appropriate to say that moving an enrollment needle from the high 600s to 900 is not an overnight thing. I do think we could immediately take a few more kids because I won't have science labs that are 700 square feet. I'll have slightly bigger classrooms. So I definitely I could see us being able to, by the way, this would open in the 28-29 school year if we could. But my message to our school board is we can only expand insofar as the state does its job through Chapter 70 funding, which some years it's really sketchy if you're in a hold harmless situation. So we need the state aid, and maybe it's a motivation to bring in other communities. But so we won't get to 900 immediately, but is there a demand there? There's no question about it. We could put 900 students in that building over a 4-year period, and we would still have a modest waiting list. What I'm saying out loud, though, is it's not lost on me that to add so many personnel in such a short period of time is likely not fiscally, it's not possible. But to have the opportunity to have the bones of a new building for 50 or 60 years and set the trajectory, set the course, that's exactly what this region needs.
Thank you.
Okay, so any more questions? No? Okay, so let us just look. So it's Article 7.
Guess you can let Tom go home now, gotcha.
I'm sorry,
I guess you can let Tom go home now.
if you would like to.
Oh, let me stay on 5 more minutes. My wife can take the dog out. If I get off now, I'm gonna get stuck with that. Oh,
I hear you.
I think she heard me. Sorry.
I hear you. So Chris? Chris? Would you like us to take action on this tonight, or do you want us to kind of?
It's up to you. If you're ready, the select board's already heard this. So if you, they haven't voted, but if you're prepared to vote tonight, that would just.
Okay, so the select board voted, or they have not voted?
No, they haven't voted, but they heard Tom already. I just wanted to keep the.
Okay,
So,
all
but
right. When do you think they might be voting?
after you do, they won't vote on anything until you vote. So,
Okay, all right. So how's everybody feeling? Are we ready to take a vote? Because I would take a motion to see if the town will approve the amended South Shore Vocational School District Regional Agreement,
Oh, yeah.
copy of which is available at the office of the town clerk and on the town's website at South Shore Regional Vocational School Agreement, or take any other action relative thereto. Are we?
So moved.
Okay.
Second,
Who said the second? Mark?
Mark Cameron.
All right, so Fran and Mark. All right, roll call, please. Mike Barclay,
Mike Barclay, aye.
Mark Cameron,
Mark Cameron, aye.
Fran Collins.
Aye.
Diane Kennedy. Can you turn your microphone on, please? I can't hear you. I'm gonna have to come back to you.
Did you text one of us?
Can you can you unmute? Okay, she's given 2 thumbs up. That's good enough for me. Mark Maggi,
Also 2 thumbs up.
okay. Mary McGoldrick,
Aye.
Meg Wheeler,
Meg Wheeler, aye.
and Gina Stino, aye. So we're
Yeah,
unanimous.
Passed.
And I hope you missed walking the dog.
Oh, it's my turn. I'll have to do it anyway. So thank you all so much. I appreciate the support and look forward to talking to you in the near future.
Thanks so much.
Very good.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is discussion about the citizens petition amendment to the Town Manager Act.
So there is
Yeah.
someone, there's a JF in the audience, I'm not sure. I will add, is J, are you here for the citizen petition? I'm not sure who JF is. Anyone?
Nope.
No, Jeff disappeared. Okay. Diane dropped off. I'm trying to get her back. I think Diane's coming back. Yeah, there's nobody in the audience anymore.
Okay, all right, well, we can move it to the agenda for next week.
Okay.
Does anybody, is everybody okay with another meeting next week? We're kind of on a slippery slope here once again for the route to town meeting and for the publication of the warrant, so.
No, that's fine.
Okay,
Jean, I am not available next Wednesday, but any further Wednesdays I am present.
okay, great, good to
Jean,
know.
this is Meg. I can do next Wednesday, but only until 8. I'm not available the following Wednesday.
Well, you know I like to end by 8, Meg.
I do. I just want to put that out there.
I'm old and sleepy. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is approval of minutes.
Yeah, right.
And I spoke with Chris about it earlier, and he says that we have 4 sets of minutes that are open to be approved. I think we approved 2 of them, so I have to do a little bit of research on this. And then we'll keep it on every agenda, just so we have it, so we can approve minutes as they come. I'd like to have the dates of the minutes that we're going to approve on there, but sometimes time kind of gets away from me. So we will not, there will be minutes for approval on every agenda going forward.
Jean, just for reference, I do still have in my inbox some minutes that Leontina had submitted, so I can send you that date.
Oh, okay, great.
And then I'm happy to circulate those if you would like me to. And then the other set of minutes, I believe, are from town meeting, which I took, so I can prepare and it was just the 10 minutes prior to the meetings. So
Right.
those are short and sweet.
And then we also had a meeting where we approved some transfers at the end of the year. So those I need to do those because
Okay.
I have those.
Okay, so
Um,
there may be 4, but in any event, I'll circle back with you about those other 2.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Okay, so we already handled topics not reasonably anticipated within 48 hours, unless Chris, you have something else that we can add?
Nope, I'll just say again, we're very excited to have Shannon join us. It's been a long search.
Welcome.
And as she said, she's been an assessor, she's been on a finance committee. She's not only a certified government accountant, she's a certified Massachusetts Public Procurement Officer, and she teaches at the Mass Accountants and Auditors Association annual meeting. I won't say she could do a Schedule A blindfolded and do a tax recap blindfolded, but she probably could. So we're very excited to have her. She joins us immediately. I don't know if she mentioned from Dedham. So we're a much friendlier, warmer place with lots of work to do. So she met with our staff last week. She came in and met Spanish staff. Everyone had a great time. So we're very excited to have her join.
Great,
So-
and we will enjoy seeing you at many of our meetings upcoming. I do like to adjourn by 8, but I can't always promise that, particularly as the time grows shorter between now and town meeting. But I see that Mike has his hands up.
I don't want to drag us on much beyond 8, but Chris, just as a matter of protocol, you mentioned earlier that the select board wasn't going to vote on that particular article until we had. Is that kind of how the cadence is going to go for all of them? Is they're not voting until we do?
Yeah, they don't vote to recommend. You're advising them as much as you're advising town meeting. So they always like to hear advisory's comments before they vote themselves. I mean, they'll hear things. I mean, they've heard a lot on the zoning already, because I want to make sure that that's in parallel. But they really want to they usually, whenever possible, they will always defer and let advisory vote first, just to get the input.
Okay, because that hasn't always been the case. So I'm just trying to understand if that's a change or if that's just
Well, that's the past practice that the current board would like to resume.
resume. Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Great, okay. So it is,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will second it as my California friend just showed up.
Perfect.
who seconded? I missed it.
Mark.
Mark
Magi.
Maggi.
All right. So Mike and Mark. Okay, roll call, please. Mike Barclay,
Mike Barclay, aye.
Mark Cameron,
Mark Cameron,
Fran Collins,
Aye.
Diane Kennedy.
Diane Kennedy, and I was an aye on the last vote, even though you couldn't hear me.
Okay, I saw your thumbs. Mark Maggi,
Mark Maggi, aye.
Mary McGoldrick,
Aye.
Meg Wheeler,
Meg Wheeler, I.
and Dina Stino, aye. Thank you all and see you next week.
Good enough.
Nice to
Good
be
night,
back
everyone.
at it, everybody.
Night.
Thank
Enjoy the
you.
long weekend.
Thank you.